Hey there, everybody. Thank you for coming to the June edition of Crystal Visions. I'm pre-recording this one today because I'm in Florida traveling and I have a bunch of photos to share with you, and it'll be easier to do it this way. So we're going to get right into it. I'm excited about our stones for this month, garnet and Sarasite, and our topic for this month, which is all about how lead-based or lead-inclusive crystals might be worked in magic. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to begin by just sharing my screen here. Let's move this over to the side. And we're going to share this. Okay. So our temple's stone for the month of June is garnet, and that's every year. Each year when we come around to the month of June, this garnet is what I associate with the power of the Black Madonna, because garnet is about focused passion, and our devotion is a form of focused passion. In many traditions worldwide, the art of devotion is described with the same kinds of adjectives that would be used to describe a passionate connection with a beloved. So, for example, the work of Ramprasad Sen writing about Kali, or the work of Rumi writing about Allah, or whether we're talking about, some other form of devotion, often it's described with the language of passion, and garnet is a stone of focused passion. Here's garnet in a rough form, and I wanted you to see something interesting about it, which is that garnet has in it sometimes elements of feldspar. And these elements of feldspar, which you can see here, once polished, really highly polished, will yield the same kind of star on the stone as the elements of feldspar do in moonstone, sunstone, or labradorite, or might even yield the chatoyancy, the cat's eye look that we see in something like a beryl or even a rose quartz. But garnet actually comes in lots of different colors. There are multiple different types of garnet. There is this type, which is known as Almondine Garnet, and the Almondine Garnet generally has this deep red color, is, reliably a, kind of blood red, very beautiful, very distinctive, very very popular in jewelry. But there's also other types of garnet. There is, for example, green garnet, or there's an orange garnet, which is known as grossularite. The green garnet is known as uvarovite. And there's also a type of garnet that has 5 different types of garnet in it, and that one is known as udiolite. But this typical almondine garnet is the most popular. Let me click here so you can see. This is a gem quality garnet, and you can see the gem quality garnet sometimes trends a little bit pinkish because of how the light moves through it. It's a very popular stone for declarations of love. It's also a really great stone to use in attracting business. A square cut garnet is said to attract clients to your business. So if you decide to get a garnet ring that you want to wear for prosperity, you might decide that you want to get a square cut garnet and either wear it as a ring, or you could wear it as a necklace, or you could get some small ones to wear as earrings. Here is naturally occurring garnet in matrix. This matrix is likely like something like granite. Garnet and granite is a very popular material for countertops. This one is unique in that it also has mica. So remember a few months back, we were working with mica and how powerful mica can be in its various different forms. This brings together garnet, mica, and the mica is often what will result in the same level of chatoyancy or the kind of sparkle that you see alongside, in a garnet specimen. But in the matrix, garnets grow in sometimes just these tiny little pieces, and over time they get larger. And to find a really nice, larger specimen of garnet is considered the prize. To find like a really large specimen of garnet is kind of more rare. And so larger garnets tend to be priced higher than smaller garnets. But a piece like this, where it's still embedded in the matrix, can be a great tool for attracting prosperity, attracting passion, attracting love, attracting creativity into the matrix of your own life. So now we're going to move on to our stone of this month according to our lithomancy divination that we did at the end of last year. And this stone for this month is Sarasite. Sarasite, oh, I had one other thing to say about garnet. So sorry. Right here. The other thing I wanted to say about garnet is that its name comes from the word granatas, which in Latin means pomegranate. And the reason is because all of the small scattered bits of garnet in a matrix like this resemble pomegranate seeds. Okay, so that was the last thing there. Now, Sarasite. Sarasite comes from the name Cerussa, which in Latin means white lead. Sarasite is a really interesting stone. This is a gem quality piece that is like absolutely gorgeous. Such a beautiful piece. Sarasite usually grows in smaller pieces. You don't usually find really large pieces of Sarasite unless you're finding them in the matrix like this. There's bigger pieces of Sarasite growing out of a matrix. Each of these is a kind of a form of Sarasite. And in this larger piece, you can see the three different main colors of Sarasite. You see the white, you see the kind of reddish brown, and you see the blackish gray. These are the most popular colors that Sarasite comes in. Most pieces of Sarasite that you'll find are about this size and look like this. They're a little bit lumpy. They seem to grow in multiple directions. They have kind of a couple different layers, and occasionally you'll find that they have like a little sparkle like we see here. Sarasite is a stone of transformation. It helps you change your life. And particularly, it helps you to align with right livelihood. If you are doing a job that's not good for you or a job that's not healthy for the world, and you don't want to be in that job anymore, and you'd like to transition your job into doing something that's better for you and better for the world, you might want to get yourself a piece of Sarasite and place it on your prosperity altar. You do not want to carry Sarasite around in your like brassiere or against your bare skin because it's very dense and heavy with lead. This is a rock where if you pick up a specimen of this stone and you carry it around, even a little piece like this, you will find that it seems inordinately heavy for its size. And this is because it has lead in it. Lead in a crystal makes it heavier, just the same way that leaded glass is heavy. And all of the stones that we're going to study from here on today are stones that have lead in them. So this means a few things. These are not stones that you should make an essence of for internal use by placing the stone directly in the water and then placing the water under your tongue. It's better to use an indirect method to make essences of Sarasite or other lead-based minerals. You would instead put a small glass bowl inside of a larger glass bowl. You'd put the stone in the small glass bowl and you'd pour the water in a basin around it so that the water doesn't come into direct contact with the stone. Then that water will be safe for you to take internally. If you find that you need to alchemize your life, that is to say, something that is of the most base condition, like lead, in your life, and turn it into gold, that is to say, to create a positive change, you may want to use one of these following stones. And Sarasite is the lead-based stone for alchemy of your financial well-being. So just one little quick look more at a more normal specimen, kind of lumpy, lots of growth interference. Here's an example of a very kind of more base level one, although a beautiful specimen with all the colors. The next lead-based stone we're going to look at today, and I have a better photo of it in a minute to share with you, but I loved the blue in this one, is Barrite. Barrite is named because its name comes from the Greek word for heavy. And being a lead-based stone, it still has that heaviness. Barrite is used to alchemize the psychic and intuitive abilities. So let's say you've got natural intuition, but you feel like you don't have good command of it. You feel like it just kind of lands when it lands. It doesn't come when called. You don't feel confident that it will show up or arise when you really need it. That is the time to call upon blue barite. And this is a piece in the matrix. And you can see that it kind of grows with these other crystals around it. These other crystals around it are not mere quartz. All of this is barite. So just so you're aware, barite comes in blue, but it comes in these other colors. And this entire matrix also has lead in it. Here's another piece of barite, where you can really see the tabular nature of the stone. Barite grows, and many lead-based crystals grow in these squarish shapes. So for example, it's not only barite that has this squarish shape, fluorite also, which we've talked about in the past, so I'm not going to cover today, but fluorite also has a lead component in it that causes that square shape. Pyrite also has the lead component in it. It also contributes to that squarish shape. Galena also has a lead-based element that contributes to a square shape. So this sort of tabular squarish shape, and this is sort of a fuzzy white and gray barite. This is a stone that's all about attuning to your third eye. Now, barite is still used today. It used to be used, and I think you'll appreciate this, the barite used to be used in the refining of sugar. So they actually used this lead-based stone in the refining of sugar, which was part of an era when they didn't know what they know now about lead and its connection with our bodies. But today, barite is used for creation of things like plasma TV screens and other types of screens that we might have. And so in a way, you can see that it has had these two practical applications where one, it sweetened things, and two, it created a window on the world. So when we look at barite, we are opening the window of the third eye. It helps us to connect with otherworldly realms. It helps us to see the things that are typically in the unseen world. It helps us to perceive things that are beyond the normal or the usual things that we expect to see. And so this is why it helps us to develop our intuition. It opens a window, it opens the door into another realm. There's one more image of beautiful, clear crystalline barite. This is slightly blue, but not super blue, more clear, but it has that little blue tint to it. And it's in a matrix, and you can see the layered kind of squarish bottoms in the matrix. You can also see just how many different tabs form from one single root. Typically, when you get a piece of barite, you're going to only get one of these little tabs. It will not be usually a cluster like this. A cluster like this can sometimes be very expensive, especially if it's this clear. These is like you'd hardly ever see. But this type, you can actually get. And I do recommend that for working with your intuition and alchemizing your intuition, taking the raw materials of your intuition and refining them to a higher purpose and to a greater specificity, that barite is a great stone for psychics, diviners, and other practitioners. So the next one that and then this is also a piece of barite. For you to see this one, I wanted you to see this is like in its lowest form. You know, you can still see the emergence of those tabular formations, but this one is pretty kind of rocky. It's not super clear. It's not super crystalline. Sometimes you will see online websites recommending that you take a piece of barite and put it on your third eye. I would not recommend this because of the lead content. It's not necessarily safe to put it directly against the skin. Rather, what I might do is I might get myself an agate eye. That's a piece of agate that's shaped like an eye, and place that on my third eye, and then put it on my altar next to or on top of a tab of barite as a way to empower my third eye vision without putting my brain or bloodstream at unnecessary lead risk. Okay, the next stone. So I wanted you to see, here's a list of some of the stones: Anglicite, Sarasite, galena, which I mentioned before. This stone called massicot, I've never seen before. Several of these I haven't. Phosgenite, minium, platnerite. Pyromorphite is a very bright green stone that is shaped like Vanadinite and Wolfinite. So we're going to look at Vanadinite and Wolfinite, but I just wanted to, have a quick second to show you that there's this list of stones, all of which have lead in them. And Pyromorphite is similar to Vanadinite and Wolfinite, except it's a very vivid acid green, and again, should be kept away. You should not put it directly on your heart chakra. It's a very helpful stone for heart healing, but you might want to put it inside of a pouch, a leather pouch, or even inside of a locket to wear near the heart. All right, so let's bring this one. So Vanadinite is an absolutely gorgeous stone. It's formed of these little red cubes. These little red cubes have a kind of a a fracturous quality. Vanadinite will break pretty easily. These little cubes detach from the matrix pretty easily. They're all attached at a central root, not necessarily attached at to each other. So some of them are a little bit, you can see, because they're really close or they've morphed together a little bit. But really, if you kind of, you know, just tapped on this with a small jewelry hammer, each of these pieces would fracture off as its own separate square. Vanadinite grows and sometimes isn't in square shapes, but is in these hexagonal shapes. Sometimes that means it's grown with or near something that has corundum in it, because corundum, which ultimately makes up rubies and sapphires, has that hexagonal structure. Vanadinite is really helpful for directing one's creativity. It's great for activating the sacral chakra. So similar to garnet, it will awaken the things that we're passionate about. So if you're passionate about writing, if you're passionate about dancing, if you're passionate about art, then in each of those cases, you will see there is a kind of an eruption of the energies that come forth from the sacral chakra. It's also really great if you've been maybe sexually repressed or you've felt like it was difficult to access pleasure. You can get a piece of vanadinite. Again, you would not put it directly on your sacral chakra, but you might draw an image of the sacral chakra, or you might write down words like passion, pleasure, intimacy, sexuality, personal growth, orgasm, and then place a piece of vanadinite on top of that on your altar, while at the same time you wear some garnet. So garnet and vanadinite go really well together for activating sexual passion, but it's not only sexual passion. It will also activate your artistic and creative passions. A lot of times when you find vanadinite, you find it in the matrix like this. So a piece like this is usually quite small. A piece like this will also be quite small. But if you'd like a larger piece, you'll often find it where it's attached to the matrix like this. And when it's attached to the matrix, it's just as powerful as if it occurs on its own. And sometimes these crystals are just teeny tiny little specks on the surface of the stone. Vanadinite can be very expensive to purchase, especially if you want a real show-stopping piece. But these smaller, like less kind of showstoppers are just as powerful. They still have that essential alchemy of taking you from a dispassionate state or a disconnected state into an awakened, creative, and passionate state, just the same. So if that's been something that you're wanting to cultivate more of in your life, to awaken your creativity, to awaken your passions, consider the alchemy of vanadinite. And just as a little reminder, any of these, Barrite, Sarasite, Vanadinite, or our next one, Wolfenite, can be made into an elixir or an essence using the indirect method. So this last stone for today, for our alchemy class, is Wolfenite. Wolfenite is not super rare. It is pretty commonly found in some areas, but I've found it not easy to get like in the crystal market for some reason. Like it'll kind of come and go, like they'll hit a vein of it and it'll be around for a while and then it disappears for a couple of years. So in all my time of selling stones and buying and selling crystals, I've only really come across Wolfenite a few times. Like Barrite, it does grow in this tabular formation, but also like Vanadinite, it grows in this cubic formation. The presence of lead dictates this shape as well as where it grows. Wolfenite is the best friend stone for women going through our change of life. It is a great stone for menopause, perimenopause. It's a great stone for healing after childbirth. It's a great stone if you've had a miscarriage or an abortion. It's a great stone for the defense of women's physical sovereignty. So I feel like it's really interesting because for many years, I did not see Wolfenite. And then in the last maybe 2 years, I've seen it a little bit, maybe 2-3 years, I've seen it kind of more and more. And especially in this like caramel orange, kind of caramel tangerine color on a matrix with these kinds of distinctive little cubes. In its less expensive form, it's going to look more like this. It'll be these teeny tiny little cubes on a matrix. This piece is a showstopper, like where it has these larger, clearly defined and formed cubes. But again, it's not how much you paid for the stone and it's not how big it is. It's really, does it resonate for you? And I think that it's just really interesting that Wolfenite has been showing up more and more on my radar in the last few years as women's reproductive sovereignty has come under fire. So I wanted to just share a working. Last night I was at a dinner and a gentleman there was mentioning how he wanted to do a working for female reproductive sovereignty. He felt really passionate about it, and he was really angry about the curtailment of female reproductive sovereignty that we're facing potentially in America and that exists in other parts of the world. And I started to think about what would a working look like for that. And I thought, well, what a great stone. As I was preparing today's lessons and I was looking into the alchemy of lead-based stones, and I thought, what a perfect stone for such a working, to alchemize female reproductive and physical sovereignty. And namely, that you might take a piece of paper and on it write the words, women's physical sovereignty and reproductive freedom, or you might write reproductive justice, or you might write, help us, goddess, preserve our physical rights. Anything that feels like it's the right intention or prayer for you. And then you could place a piece of Wolfenite on top of that paper and let it sit there as a protection. Or you could get a piece of Wolfenite and that piece of paper, put it inside of a small jar or other type of vessel, and then bury that in the ground as a way, in a place where no one will ever dig it up, as a way to anchor women's physical and reproductive sovereignty here on Earth. But even if you're not doing the social justice aspect of alchemy with Wolfenite, you can really work with Wolfenite. I have a piece on my altar, on my main altar at home, that when I started to go through my change of life, which is now a couple years in, I started to put it there, and it has helped me so much. I have also put it inside of like a fanny pack type belt, like not against my skin, but just in a little pouch, and tied it around my waist and worn it there. And it's helped me with the extensive physical cramps and transformational changes that are happening in my body at this time in my life. So if you're looking to alchemize your reproductive justice or to alchemize your personal change in life, Wolfenite is a fantastic ally. And like I said, it can be even a piece that looks like this. It doesn't have to be a super stellar piece. Let me just pull up so that you can see how it looks. Pyromorphite, because I want you to see this beautiful green. this vivid acid green. And you can see that for a really beautiful, large piece, it's going to be pretty expensive. This is not pyromorphite. This is a, looks like it's a dyed quartz. But pyromorphite, similar to the others, grows in that geometric formation, but you see that it's longer, and it's kind of a combination between the tabular form of the barite and the more cubic or hexagonal form of the Vanadinite. And in this case, this is a piece that looks like it grew somewhere near prehnite or malachite. There's something coppery that caused this bubbling, because it's lead, that the lead base that causes is part of this this shape, where it's kind of more angular, and bubbling tends to be caused by some presence of copper, and green color often also comes as a result of copper. But the pyromorphite that I've seen in my life tends to look kind of more like this, and tends to come, if you purchase a piece in these little shards, just one or two of these little shards at a time, would be still a couple of dollars. It's not a very inexpensive stone, but but it can be purchased. And if you decide you want to alchemize something around your heart, to transform something in your heart, you might decide you want to reach for pyromorphite. So that's just a quick little tour of some of the lead-based stones. I hope you've enjoyed it, and happy rock hunting, and we'll see each other next month.